Question we're to answer this week is, what should the role of external actors be in the development context? And when I think about this question, I think we've asked it in a lot of different classes and have answered it in many different ways. And so I think there's probably a pretty good consensus between all of us about what the right posture should be and what the right role that we should all take as an external actor doing community development work. And so this is a relatively easy question to answer, especially if you've been, or I guess especially since we've all been really exposed to some great resources like Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire and many other resources that we've been exposed to. It makes the question pretty easy to answer, but I think what's actually hard is really kind of embodying all these things and really implementing the right posture and the right role. And so I've only read a few people's, or really watched a few people's responses, and so far, and so hopefully what I have to say will really just add to the conversation and won't just be a duplicate response. And one resource that has really helped me in really thinking about my role as a community developer and as an external actor is just my association with CCDA and being exposed to the philosophy of CCD, which is Christian community development. And there's a poem, an ancient Chinese proverb that CCDA uses that is just a good summation of the philosophy of CCD, and I think lends some key insights into what the role of an external actor should be in the development context. And so you might be familiar with this poem, but I'm going to just go ahead and read it and then kind of give some of my thoughts about it. So the poem is, go to the people, live among them, learn from them, love them, start with what they know, build on what they have, but of the best leaders, when their task is done, the people will remark, we have done it ourselves. And I think this particular order just really gives us insight into what our role as an external actor should be. And so it says, go, live, learn, and love, and then start with and build on. And then it finishes by saying, but of the best leaders, when their task is done, the people will remark, we have done it ourselves. And I think you can make a valid argument that if you have not done those things, if you have not gone to the people, if you've not lived among them, learned from them, and loved them, then you are not a Christian community developer. And in many ways, doing those things in that order legitimizes your standing with the people. It builds trust, and it gives an opportunity to begin meaningful dialogue, which I think Freire would really kind of argue, and he does really kind of articulate in his book that engaging in this kind of dialogue is really our ultimate aim, and really begins the process of humanization and liberation by engaging the community and entrusting that they themselves have the ability to reason and think critically about their concrete situation. And one of the things that we're all combating in the development context, I think regardless of where you work, is this culture of learned helplessness. And Paulo Freire on page 63, he calls it self-depreciation. And so regardless of how you really kind of phrase it, I really like the phrase learned helplessness because I think it is something that is learned and it's not something that's inherent. But this self-depreciation, learned helplessness really comes from years of an oppressed people internalizing the opinion that the oppressors have of them. And so, over time, over many different ways, they hear that they are no good, that they're sick, they're lazy, they're unproductive, the list goes on and on and on. And eventually, they buy into this lie, which further really dehumanizes them. And again, that's on page 63 of Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And in my experience, I see many people that have really kind of taken on this attitude, and they see, people, outsiders, and they really want them, and they ask them to do things for them that they could do for themselves, which, we know is not really the right approach to take as an external actor, is to do things for people that they can do for themselves. But I think the reality is that many people that we're serving are wanting that, and it doesn't mean that they're incapable, or it doesn't mean that they don't have the ability to do it. I think it's really this learned state that that they have learned just by being oppressed. And so I think it really just kind of shows the depth of oppression, that the way that things are, the order of this world really strips dignity from people, really disempowers people over generations, and it is something that is learned. And so I think it's our role as an external actor to restore this lost dignity and to empower people. And so after we live, learn, and love the people, our next task is to not lay out our master plan of salvation, as Freire says on page 95. It's not to go in and say this is what needs to be done to remedy the situation, to bring about liberation and freedom, but it's to begin that dialogue and to start with what they know and build on what they have. And any other starting point is really a form of manipulation, and it treats people as objects and further dehumanizes them. And so ultimately what we want is for people to take on the process of their own liberation and to be agents in their own liberative process. And so what we don't want to do, I can't remember the page, I can find it again, but I know Freire talks about what we don't want to do is just go in and sell people this message of freedom and liberation, almost like we're trying to sell them this product. We don't do that. But what we do is we begin this process of dialogue, and which leads to critical reflection, and which leads then to people really being able to think critically about their concrete situation. And out of this critical reflection, true liberative action follows. And so we don't go in selling them this message of freedom and liberation, but we begin this dialogue, we begin this process of critical reflection, and only when the oppressed truly reflect on their concrete situation can true liberative action follow. And that takes a lot of time. And I think that's something that's a key pieces to this equation that many people don't realize or aren't really willing to sign up for. I know in some of my training with CCDA, some of the founders there, some of the people that have really come up with this philosophy say, that it really takes 15 years. You need a 15-year commitment to really see any kind of change on any level. And so I think when we talk about, beginning dialogue and, getting people to reflect critically about their situation and beginning this liberative process and liberative action. And I think and that seems like it's just boom, 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 boom. But I think a part of that equation is really just that takes a long time to really kind of flesh out. And so it takes a really big commitment from an external actor to really kind of be engaged in that process for the long term. And so I think to really sum it up, I think the role of an external actor is to help position an oppressed people in such a way that they can break free from the bonds of oppression and begin to reflect and think critically about their concrete situation. And so this is done effectively by us by us living, learning, and loving people, beginning this non-manipulative dialogue to raise that critical consciousness level, and starting with what they know, building on what they have, and ultimately, the oppressed people, the people that we're serving, and ultimately for them to really take on the role of liberator, so that when all is said and done, and I'll put that in quotes because I feel like this liberative process is continually ongoing, so that when everything is done, that the people that we're serving are really looking at themselves as being liberator, and not looking at us as being the liberator. And so they really look at themselves as taking on that role. They really look at themselves as the one that have really implemented the solutions, remedied the situation, and that they have done the work themselves and not us. And so I think the role of an external actor is, to come alongside people and aid them in this process versus, really taking the reins and doing it for them. And so thank you. That's 10 minutes, and I hope you guys stuck with me this whole time, and I hope I added to the conversation. Thanks.